Here we have the Sōya, which is well, it was originally a cargo ship that was made for cold water ports. So the bow was strengthened for use in ice. Then later it was an icebreaker, and then an Arctic research vessel. And also spent time as a cargo ship in the Imperial Japanese Navy. From my understanding, it was one of the last Imperial Japanese Navy ships that was in operation. It opens at 10:30, so we're going to go take a look. So the ship is pretty much in the condition it was when it was decommissioned from being a research vessel. They basically pulled the propellers off. It was originally a cargo ship. It was built in what is now Russia, then the Soviet Union, and was intended for use in cold waters. It's reinforced against ice. So we have a cargo hatch here, and a cargo hatch up there. Cargo hatch would have been used naturally for storing cargo. This was even true during the Antarctic expeditions. After World War II, the ship was used to make deliveries to remote lighthouses, particularly in Hokkaido. And then it was retrofitted to the current setup. So this is not what it looked like as a cargo ship, obviously, for Antarctic research. So one of the retrofits actually was this decking down here. So they actually made the ship wider. It was actually a much sleeker ship as a cargo ship. So this is the tableware room. This is the tableware that would have been used in the officers' mess. And in fact, because storms get so violent in Antarctica, there are actually special shelving units to make it harder for them to fall and rock too much. The body of the ship once tilted as far as 62 degrees. Oh, I would be so seasick. So seasick. The next room, which would be the dining hall and saloon for the officers. You know, yeah. Kilometer. Oh, I like the penguins. During its period as a research vessel, it was also used as a meeting room for crew and researchers. Here we have the chief engineer's room. So the chief engineer got a private room. It's a ship, so space is of a premium. So chief engineer, captain, chief navigator, research expedition leader, those type of individuals would get a private room. The rest of us, the normal piñons, we do not. There is a flight suit. So here's the engineer's bedroom. Chief engineer has a private room, which we just saw, and then his own bedroom, which I guess at one point was used by the chief aerial navigation officer. So they basically had 3 different routes they followed. Pretty sure this is the one they used the first time. This was another one. And this was the 3rd one. So this is officer's bedroom number 8. However, it also got converted at one point later on and was a darkroom for film development. I think slowly over time, as more things became automated, they needed less crew, so they needed less officers, so it could be used for other things. This hatch here, interestingly enough, was where they originally loaded in cargo like food. So as you can see, they've created a cutaway. So this is where supplies that they would have used like food would have been loaded in to the refrigeration space that is down there. Now it's time to see how the other half live. This is the number 3 crew quarters. So the non-officers, there would be 4 of them to a room. They didn't have a lot of space. There was no air conditioning, so when they passed through the equator, these places were kind of miserable. I need to watch my head because, yeah, I'm a little tall for ships. This is the cold storage where they live. store food, meat, vegetables, their provisions that they need. Oh, here's more provision storage. This looks like dry. Yeah, so this would be canned, not frozen. So during the expedition, this was the dining hall for the crew. It was also used as a recreation room. Now it has a cutaway, so we can see down into the main engine. This gives you an idea of the size of the engine. There's a person, there's a Jeep, there's the engine. This would have been noisy, but this cutaway wouldn't have actually been here when it was in use. That would have been 1938. That's when it would have still been in Russia, and then it was transferred to Japan. It was being used as a cargo ship. 1940, by this point, yeah, you can see the guns. It's being used by the Japanese Imperial Navy. 1948, the war's over. So at this point, the Sōya was used to repatriate Japanese citizens back to Japan. These were citizens that had lived in areas that were taken over by the Soviet Union, or had been Manchuria, which had collapsed, or soldiers that were fighting. And the war was over and they were stranded. Some of these guys, it took them years to get home. The Soviet Union actually basically held some of them prisoner for the rest of their lives. I think the last guy who was held by the Russian government, I think he was allowed to leave, but he just had lived there so long he didn't leave. He was in Kazakhstan. I think he died in 2022. Alright, this is when it was painted white, and it would have been used for ferrying supplies to remote lighthouses. In 1956, it's red. This would be when it was used in Antarctica. Oh, these are the two dogs. So there was a research center that they basically had to evacuate and get the people out of because the weather turned foul a little earlier than usual, and they had to leave behind their dogs. There were 17 dogs, and they expected them all to die. However, when they returned the next year, 2 of the dogs were still alive. 1978. Oh, this is in Hakodate, I think. So 1978, the ship was going to be decommissioned, so it made a tour of many of its places that it serviced, and in Hakodate, it really got crowded by people, I guess. And then here it is being turned into a museum ship. So this is the special 500 yen that was issued for 50 years of Antarctic observation. They also did a stamp set. They also did another stamp set. Now we're at the old tableware room. You can see that to prevent stuff breaking, it was set directly into the wall, and it also had this special container, just like the officer's room. Oh, and here's the kitchen. Bring meals every day for 130 people. Ooh. And it was probably rocking. Probably not actually a very easy place to cook. All right, on the left here we have some pictures of the Equator Festival. It's a festival held on a ship when you pass through the equator. You pray to the sea gods, and then there's a festival, and they kind of mess with the people who it's their first time passing through the equator. They also talk about getting a haircut on board. Nobody was professional, so you didn't quite know what you were going to get. More crew quarters. Oh, here's Taro and Jiro, the dogs. Here's a storeroom with signal flags. So I'm guessing the hoist is probably not far from here. That part of the ship you can't go into. There's a lot of the ship you can't go into. Another officer's bedroom. So there's 2 single level beds. So the 2 low ranking officers would have shared this bedroom. It was only the really high ranking officers that got their own private bedroom. Oh, auxiliary engine room. Well, it's below there. You gotta go down in there. All right, another crew room. So the main engine room is below here. So this would be the oil room. 25 crew members from the engineering department worked under the chief engineer. So 25 engineers to keep this whole thing running. So that there on the table is called an air scoop. So you would actually put that out the window, the open side facing the direction you're going, to force more air into the room, almost acting like a natural fan, I guess. Help keep everything cool. He looks ready. Ooh, the warrant officer's room. 2 to a room, so they got a room kind of like a normal officer. So these are the type of clothes that would have been worn as protection against the cold. So at the time it was based on mountaineering gear. That's interesting. So thermal underwear, mittens, coats. Yeah, another warrant officer's room. I gotta watch my head. So this room was actually used by the research expedition, so the researchers. The first expedition there were 53 members, later there were 50, then 37, and by the time they got to the 6th expedition there was only 18 researchers. This probably was true of the crews. As more things became automated and more things were set up, you didn't need as many people. Alright, here's an important place, the dispensary, where the doctor is. It worked as your hospital. It could conduct surgery. It could treat, well, they tried to treat anything they could. So the doctor was actually a very important person, and they don't mention him, but I imagine he got a private room too. Or at least they almost always got private rooms on US ships. I'm not sure about Japanese ships. Alright. For research expedition members. Oh, research expedition members were mostly posted at the back of the ship. So one way I was told always was to put your hand on the top, and that makes sure that your head goes far enough under. And I've always remembered that tip, and it's cut down on my getting my head banged on things a lot. Another officer's bedroom. However, it was actually used as a dark room on the first expedition, and then from the 3rd expedition onward, a biological observation room. So I'm guessing this was more of an officer's bedroom when it was used as a cargo ship. Oh, a cat, cute. Another officer's bedroom. For the first Antarctic expedition, the team and crew received a male calico cat as a good luck gift. The cat was named Tatsuki after the lead researcher Tatsuki Nakakata, and was the first cat from Japan to make it through an Antarctic winter. All right. People love cats. We got some charts. I don't recognize this place. Oh, okay. Chief radio operator's room. So this was the room for the chief radio operator who was in charge of the radios. Well, that's Saipan, so this probably would have been mostly used for World War II. Oh, well, this makes sense. Near the chief radio operator's room is the radio room. Lots of options. Oh, and there's your little scratch board. Probably whoever is second on duty could take a nap. This is the flight deck. The Sōya was modified to be able to land helicopters before it went on its Arctic research expeditions. Over there is the captain's room, the captain's quarters, which of course is very close to the bridge because he might need to be there quickly as he is the head honcho. The captain's quarters itself included a bedroom, a bathroom, and a public room. The public room is, well, it would have acted like his office and a meeting place where visitors or maybe meetings with the officers would have been conducted. From the captain's quarters, it's just a short trip up to the bridge. So the bridge is from where the ship is controlled. Has a winged bridge, offers decent view. In the front of the bridge, we have the wheelhouse, which is where we literally turn the wheel. That feels so low from my perspective. Speaking tube for announcing, another speaking tube. That way you can communicate with the other rooms when things are noisy. Engine telegram, so telling the engineers what to do as far as speed. One for each engine, because there's 2 engines, one powering each of the props, the turbines. Revolution indicator, angle indicators, speedometers, wind direction. Gives you a good idea. Now, that brings us over to here. Now, first off, we have our charts. In here we have the chart rooms. So here they would be able to chart out where they're going. So you can see Japan right there. There's Tokyo Bay. There's Taiwan. There's parts of China. There's the sea. There's a Shinto shrine back there. And there is also an air command room. So this was installed for the 4th expedition forward, and here was where they could communicate and message airplanes and helicopters. The symbol there, yep, right there, basically Japan Coast Guard symbol. Well, it was called something different back then, and I can't remember the name. Here are the other lifeboats. So we have the solid wooden ones, which could be put down by crane and recovered. And then here we have inflatable life rafts that are powered by a gas cylinder. So these were one-time use, or if you could use them again, it was probably complicated to roll them back up. Where these boats were much more useful for, oh, we're gonna launch a boat and recover it. Up there we have the crow nest, radar, and other measuring devices. And then from here on back is the helicopter landing pad. I don't know, I think it must have been terrifying, particularly if the ship was pitching back and forth, to try to land a helicopter on this thing. Not that I've ever piloted a helicopter, although I'm guessing if it was a really bad storm, they just couldn't use helicopters and they had to live with it. So after they installed this larger helicopter pad, most of the cargo was offloaded by helicopter when they got to the Antarctic. And they didn't use the boats and cranes as much. Also meant they didn't have to get as close and they could stay off in the water. I hope you've enjoyed this little tour of the Sōya. If you've watched this far, please give me a like. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Go down to the comments. Tell me what you think about the ship, and I will see you in the next one.